Alright, so Bant Heroic. Where do we go from here? That's the real question. Um, it's not something that I like to set in stone. You know, the deck is incredibly fluid as far as cards that are both good and bad at various times. You know, in a format full of Languish, Trident Tactics is great because it can save 2 creatures for just 1 blue mana. It's really good when mono red is a thing and all the burn spells are the major removal players in the format, but the last few matches we played weren't exactly indicative of my experience at Grand Prix London, but that's kind of just how it goes with these things. You know, you have to be prepared to face a random field, not just a very defined field, and we didn't really come prepared for that today. We were focused a little too much on hangerback decks, and we didn't play against a single hangerback walker, so that's something to keep in mind when you're trying to build and change your deck. This deck is very delicate in the sense that even the smallest tiny changes can influence how a single match or even your entire tournament can go. And as you saw during these videos, we had Valor stances, and when we drew them and were able to kill creatures, they were okay, but they also gummed up the deck a lot. You know, having a lot of 2-drop spells as opposed to 1-drop spells that are either protection or just weird 1-ofs that your opponent has to play around, you know, it ended up backfiring a little bit. I would have loved to have had a Giant's Presence or a Trident Tactics in a lot of those scenarios, because we want to be able to like play a Mentor and Protected or just play an early creature and Protected. I think Hangerback Walker is probably still going to be good in the deck. That's something that I guess we can, you know, move to at a future date, but I was trying to just go back to a little bit more of the classic Bant Heroic and just focusing a little more on Mentor to get around a card that has been mostly problematic for me over the last few weeks. I think that one of the easiest changes to the current list is just going back to the 75 that I played at Grand Prix London, except, or not the 75, but the 60. The 60 in the main deck was really good. You know, we get to trim a Valor stance for a Trident Tactics. Maybe we can trim a second Valor stance to the sideboard and play a Giant's Presence as well. We can move a Monster Mentor to the sideboard, cut the Battlewise Hoplite for 2 copies of Hangerback Walker. And as for the sideboard, you know, at the Grand Prix I was a little afraid of Stormbreath Dragon, and that was one of the reasons why I played 2 copies of Encase in Ice. And it goes back and forth. Sometimes you have to ignore Stormbreath and hope that it doesn't come, but if it's really popular in the format, then maybe Bant Heroic's not that good of a choice. Right now, I don't think it's that popular or even all that great, so I think that Bant Heroic is still a pretty good choice for that reason. We could change the deck. Here, I'll just move some stuff around. These 2 creatures can become hangerbacks. This Valor stance goes to the sideboard. This one gets cut. We do a Presence and then oh, what's it called? Trident Tactics. And then you have to get to work on the sideboard a little bit. So I really like having access to the 3 Aqueous forms against the green Devotion decks, or any deck that can just put a ton of creatures on the board that attack you on the ground. We can probably get rid of well, I don't actually know what to cut now. So this, you know, this Mentor is obviously gone, but we do want access to the second one when we get to board in the 2 Treasure Cruises in the really grindy matchups. So it is possible we do want to cut like 1 Aqueous form, and that'll give us 15 right there if we do that. And like this 15 in the sideboard looks pretty solid. I go back and forth on negate versus what's it called? Stratus Dancer. I think that they're pretty similar. Stratus Dancer is a much more aggressive card. You know, it's a morph that you don't mind playing on turn 3, since most of the removal is going to be targeted at your early creatures. If your first creature or 2 creatures even hit the bin, you're able to just, you know, morph the Stratus Dancer without much fear of it dying. And even if it does die, that just means you're a little bit closer to Treasure Cruise. It means your next creature probably won't die unless your opponent just has a significantly good draw. I still do like the island. I think there are a few matchups where you want to cut the forest, so you just absolutely need a 20-second land out of the sideboard. And there are also some matches where you just want to go up to 23 land. When you're boarding into two more treasure cruises, you know, you want to make sure you're able to cast them, and you also want to make sure you're able to cast other spells on the turn where you're casting Treasure Cruise. As you saw in some of the games, we were able to cast Treasure Cruise and couldn't really do anything in the same turn, and whenever that's the case, you know, you usually fall a little too far behind to really do much of anything. As I said already, I really miss the Hangerback Walkers as being able to just cast a creature and not really care if it lives or dies. And Battle with Hoplite was not super impressive, but excuse me. Other than that, I don't really have a whole lot. The second Revoke Existence should definitely be in the deck over the Erase. Both are pretty good against stuff like Constellation, but Revoke is insanely good against Hangerback Walker, where Erase obviously doesn't do anything. I could see potentially mixing up the board a bit. Maybe you don't want the second Mentor. I haven't had the second Mentor for a while now. But if you're trying to go wide around Hangerback, I think it's important to have access to the second one. But yeah, I don't know. That's it for now, I suppose. Moving forward in the format, I still think Bant Heroic is fine. If this Abzan Hangerback deck runs rampant through the next few weeks, it could be a poor choice for the Invitational. I'm going to be working on a few different decks up until then. I think that any deck with a lot of flyers is going to be pretty well positioned against Hangerback Walker. You know, it's not super hard for them to be able to kill their own Hangerback, whether it's fighting a creature with Dromoka's command or just using a downfall on it to create like a swarm of chump blockers. They can also put a lot of counters on it with their Dromoka's commands, its own ability. They usually have enough mana to cast it for X equals 2 later in the game, or even 3 sometimes. So they are going to be able to make some Thopters, but you know, maybe if you're playing a Mantis Rider deck, you just get this flyer in play with haste that gets to start attacking them while they're still trying to develop their board. And I think that since it gets around ultimate price, it could be pretty great right now. It's not super hard for them to kill a Mantis Rider with Dromoka's command, because they do have Fleece Mane Lion and things like that. You know, reasonably sized creatures to play early in the game that can to fight and kill the Mantis Rider, but I think you can maybe build a pretty sweet Jeskai deck to win a tempo war against that deck. I think that maybe the blue-red Insult Artifact deck is still pretty good right now. I think it's a lot better than people are giving it credit for. Like, obviously, Abzan Charm and Dromoka's Command are both pretty good against Insult Artifact itself, but neither of those cards are particularly impressive against the rest of the deck. You know, you have Whirler Rogues, Ghostfire Blaze to put on all these flyers. You have so many cards that can just generate threats, multiple threats for just 1 mana, that you can sometimes just overwhelm them. I do think that I'm going to be working a little bit on the Thopter deck over the next few days. I've been brewing up some versions in my head, especially mono blue versions. I actually think that mono blue might be better than blue red. You do lose Shrapnel Blast and some really good sideboard options, but you also gain the ability to just play 1 color, which lets you play more colorless lands. And I think that Foundry of the Consuls, as well as Tomb of the Spear Dragon, are both phenomenal lands to have in an artifact-based deck. And if you can keep it monocolor, then why not? Master Waves could also make an appearance, since it combos pretty well with Whirler Rogue to just generate a lot of guys. If most removal in the format is red-based, as opposed, like, the only deck in the format really that plays non-red removal is like blue-black X Control and Abzan. Everything else is just mono Lightning Strikes, Wild Slashes, Searing Bloods, and at the very least it could be an insane sideboard card right now, so I would keep a lookout for that. But anyway, that's going to be all for me this week, guys. I really appreciate y'all watching this Magic Online video. I'm Todd Anderson, and for StarCGames.com, we'll see you soon.